Hey everybody, Ramey here, and today I'm going to give you some updates, some things that have been going on with me, some things I've been working on, some of the stuff I'm going to be, things I'm going to be working on over the next semester, and just some of the stuff happening in the world that I've been interested in. Um, all right, so let's start off today. So the first thing I did is I created a video over the last few days and I uploaded them. It was a part 3 series, and basically the video was all about what life is like being a professor. And my first part of the series was about life before becoming a professor, like thinking about getting my Ph.D. and stuff that you should be thinking about if you're ever considering it. It's just some of the stuff I went through, emotionally, like talking about quitting my job and going back to school. And then my next part of my series was about actually going to school for my doctorate. And the third part was about what life was like afterwards being a professor. And so I just wanted to, first thing today, just talk a little bit about what I've been doing preparing for my semester, because my semester started on Wednesday. So kind of what are some of the things that I'm doing. And if you can't tell, I'm like completely flustered today. It's Friday afternoon. And someone just asked, they're considering getting their master's in UX design or ID or something like that. So I could talk a little bit about like that if you want me to as well. Let me tell you a little bit about what I've been doing over the last, probably the last 23 days, because I started working again August 1st. And then let me hit on your point about considering getting your master's degree and stuff. All right. So first thing, over the last 20 days, I've been prepping classes, a lot, like really focusing on prep, trying to get my courses ready. So what does that involve? My classes are all online. So that means that I'm developing a curriculum. So a lot of the videos I've been posting on my YouTube channel over the last 23 days are, I'd say like 50 to 70% of them are all focused on my classes, because I'm trying to make sure that, the content on my classes, the students have all the content that I need. So I make a lot of those videos for my students, just because I can use them in my class. Instead of having them like pay to read some book or something, I'll just make a video on it. And so that's a lot of what I've been doing. I've been pulled into tons and tons of meetings. I've been on campus. I've been developing a computer technology lab. So I've been spending a lot of time like getting my tech lab all together. It's really cool. So I'm actually going to pull up a picture of it. This is really generic that I'm on my phone pulling up a picture when I should just be using a tool that allows you to show it. But what I'm going to do, you can see what I'm trying to show in this picture is that one of the walls is just a full green screen, which is really awesome for my students. I'm really excited to use that to create a lot of video this year. But we had the whole entire wall is painted as a green screen, which I'm kind of excited about. All right, so someone asked, considering getting a master's degree, currently working on a certificate program in UX design. I think that's a great, I think there is definitely a difference between UI, UX, and ID. I think there's a pretty distinct difference between those three things. And I think that the UI is definitely like a hot topic right now, like user experience and user interface design are really hot fields, especially like for the FANG companies like Facebook, Amazon, Netflix, Google. I think that there's a lot of money in them if you're moving to the West Coast, like starting salaries of like $200,000. It's crazy. But it's not necessarily, I wouldn't say it's a new field. We just have a new title for it, just saying, UX or UI, but we've always had those fields. We've always focused on interface design. I teach an interface design course right now. Well, not right this semester, but I taught it over the summer. It's called Computer Interface Design, and I focus on UX and UI design for computer and mobile devices. And it is a good field, and there's a lot to it. It involves, it involves some ID, it involves some graphic design, and I kind of like seeing those two mesh together. So I do think it's a really good field to get into. I would recommend. Oh, I mean, absolutely is important in ID, and you can't teach someone to be a designer or a developer unless they understand it. And I think it's something that's not hit on in a lot of ID programs at all. Like I don't know ID programs that are teaching really, pulling from HCI, human computer interaction, and other fields like that that are very similar. Like, the software development is not something that ID pulls from a lot. So I don't know why they don't do that. It's so important. I mean, that's why I teach a computer interface design course, so that we hit on it. But in my program, we actually have like 3 courses that focus on simply design of interfaces, like how to design for development. But I don't know why it's not standard in ID programs. I don't know why it's not as important. I think user experience we do hit on. We try to make things, we focus on that specifically in the analysis part of instructional design, but the user interface and making things user friendly is not something we spend a lot of time on. I don't know why. I think we just don't, it almost, whenever I am talking about HCI and I'm like talking about designing an interface to make it more friendly, I like think about engineering, and I think about like, okay, if I was designing the panel for an airplane pilot to fly his or her plane, like where are buttons located where are like buttons that they need to control the airplane? Like that emergency button needs to be really close that they can push it if they need to. Like everything needs to be user friendly. Like in an emergency situation, everything a pilot needs has to be at their disposal. So it's like, you start thinking about UX and UI design and how important it becomes when you're doing certain things like that, especially like when I was designing training for the military. But the problem is I'm only focused, and instructional designers are only focused on the training aspect. We're not usually involved in the product design phase, which is unfortunate because that's where you need like the human computer interaction, the UI, UX design. Because I mean, so what? I'm designing training, like I put a button in a bad place, users don't like it. Doesn't really impact the training that much. Versus like the engineer that's building that airplane panel for a pilot. So there is a distinction between like where the person focusing on UX design versus ID, like that is the distinction right there. And yeah, ID is definitely more curriculum development, whereas UX design jobs are going into product development. And I've always felt that ID should be involved in product development and never understood why we're not. But there is a distinction there. There is a difference. But I mean, the salaries that I'm seeing for UI, UX are really impressive right now. I mean, it's a really hot field. The salaries, even like in the East Coast, are pretty high. Like starting are like 6 figures, and it's crazy. So I do like the salaries, and I don't think I think it's a stable field. I think it's needed. I just think the salaries are probably high right now because it's new. We've had HCI forever, but when something becomes a buzzword, it becomes hot and everyone kind of wants to do it. So I don't know if the salaries will remain as high as they are, but they're really high right now. And I could see why anyone would want to do that. But if you have an interest in training and that's where you see yourself in the future, I mean, I think UX or UI is a great starting point, especially like you're getting a certificate, and then decide what you want to do, whether you want to continue a master's in that or get a master's in ID or get a master's in both. And then you can kind of pick and choose what you want to do. Salaries in ID, 3 years experience, you're going to be over 6 figures as well. So it's not like there's a low salary cap in ID either. But I think the potential, like for maximum income, is definitely higher on the West Coast and going into UX design. I mean, I'm seeing many high salaries, like well over 200,000 to. I'm hearing about people making like 500,000, people making like $1.2 million. moving up in senior management from programming or UX design. But obviously that's a 1 in a 20,000 people in the field. Yeah. And this is Silicon Valley, or working for Amazon, working for Microsoft, working for Google, working for Netflix, working for one of the big tech firms. But I am seeing those salaries. I'm hearing about them, at least. I'm hearing about people who are like, I'm, literally making $500,000 a year doing this. We're talking about like brain surgeon salaries. So it's kind of crazy, but they are out there. Like, it's not uncommon to hear of people making like 250 now in those fields. In instructional design, I'm not seeing 250, but I am seeing like 150, 175. I mean, I'm seeing up there, and it's becoming a lot more common. Salaries are way up right now across the board in general. Compared to 2008, when the economy tanked, salaries are up so much. Average salary in ID and this is across the United States, and this didn't include management, in like 2010 was like $72,000. Now it's more like 90 something. Yeah, and if you want to get into programming and courses like JavaScript, PHP, database development, anything like that, I think that's a great career. I've always been hesitant to be a developer myself. I guess I personally didn't like the work. I loved programming, and I do love programming, but I loved programming on like if I was going to make an app, a phone app. I made a few phone apps about maybe 6 years back. And it was a lot of fun, but I could never do that as a job. I don't like programming for someone else. I loved creating something that was like my creation, almost like a piece of art. And I love that aspect of programming. But programming as a job was something I just could never personally do. And I think that programming absolutely helps in ID, any kind of development. So let me tell you a story. So I was working at Booz Allen. This is like 2004. Large consulting firm, 50,000 people work there. And they needed a Flash programmer. They needed a HTML programmer. And HTML, I mean, pretty simple language, right? And then they need ActionScript for Flash. And I was like 1 in 5 people in the whole company that could work on those projects. There was nobody that had those skills. That was, we had computer scientists, but they weren't focusing on HTML. They weren't focusing on ActionScript. Now, and I would say JavaScript's probably right there with that. Yeah, it was Flash way back in the day. That was Flash was big back then. No such thing anymore. Well, Adobe Animate is Flash, but yeah, we don't use that. But I was a big ActionScript programmer. I really got into it. ActionScript 1, 2, and 3, I really got into and knew well. I'd also learned C++, and I'd taken courses on COBOL, on C#, and there was no such thing as a course on JavaScript when I was in school. It was way too new. I remember I started majoring in computer science, and I told them I wanted to develop web pages, and they told me there was no classes that taught HTML. And computer science still doesn't really focus on those kind of classes either. They're focusing on object-oriented program to create software. HTML is not really a programming language. JavaScript is, but it's not where a computer programmer's focus really is. I think any ID learning JavaScript, HTML, CSS are so awesome because you can communicate with the developers. You can do so much in the field when you are a developer yourself. You can be a one-man shop. You can, especially being able to do, I'd say even developing graphics is a better skill for an ID than being a programmer. But I really like at least my IDs to understand programming logic, some basic stuff. I'm not I don't tell my IDs they need to program. I tell them they're not going to be programming. But yeah, the math part is a lot. But I think programming's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun when you have a problem and you're able to solve it. So programming logic is understanding how computers think. It's how do you, when you're writing a function in program, or even an if-then statement, Like programs focus on like if then, like if I do this on my machine, then this is going to happen, and starting to just get like the how does this software think? How does my computer think? And really getting the nuts and bolts of that. So I like them to understand that so they can talk to a developer and understand kind of what they're doing. But computer science, you know, programming in general is a lot of fun. I remember being a freshman in college, maybe a sophomore, and like having to do a simple program, just a little more complicated than Hello World, and staying up all night in my dorm, like trying to figure out how to do this. Because we had the internet back then, but it wasn't like as useful as it is now. You couldn't just look up like, how do you program this? Like there weren't sites that did that. You know, I could probably, there was like informational sites about programming, but that was it. Now I could like find the answer in 1 second. Yeah, we were like programming C and Unix or something like that. I remember. Yeah, it was good times, long time ago. But programming hasn't necessarily changed. Oh yeah, we weren't using DOS. We were, you know, Windows 98, I guess. I started college in 97, so Windows 98 was what everyone, Windows Me, Windows 98, maybe Windows 2000, Windows NT, that kind of stuff. But everyone was using. No one was using Macs anymore at that point. Apple was completely phased out. MacBook didn't become popular again until like 2001, 2002. Mac slowly started the, you know, yeah, 88, DOS, Windows 1, Windows 3.0, Windows 3.1, Macintosh computer. Macintosh maybe was phasing out by 88 already. Apple was becoming not popular at that point. Yeah, I remember using Unix and DOS. I used to run games using Unix using DOS because it was quicker to run the game in DOS than it was to use Windows 3.1 or maybe 3.0. When 3.1 came out, you could like, they were just as fast or better. Kind of funny. But yeah, you know, a lot of stuff's been happening. It's such a busy time of the semester, so it's hard for me to find time to just get on and kind of talk to people and just kind of talk about what I've been up to. But I've just been so busy. I got this grant for a computer lab last year. All the equipment came in. The room is done. We have carpeting, all new furniture. We painted the wall, all kinds of new tech. I got like a bunch of VR stuff, which I'm really excited to try out. I've been playing with the Oculus Quest headsets lately. And I have the Rift S, but the problem I'm having with the Rift S is you have to install it on your computer, and it's not working on my. I have an Alienware R17 laptop. That's like my work computer, and this software won't install on it for some reason. It will install on my little Alienware computers. I just haven't spent the time to test it. But the Quest is awesome. No wires or anything. I love it. So, and I do have a gaming computer. Yeah, I have all Alienware. So at my university, we have to use Dell computers. So everything we buy is Dell or Apple. Those are kind of our two choices. So Alienware is owned by Dell, and it's really makes sense for me to just get that. It's, you know, they're one of the most popular brands, and they have a VR ready computer. And I can only get a computer every 4 to 5 years. So I have to make sure when I do get a computer that I get the highest possible model, because it has to last me 4 years, and they expect me to create video, teach Photoshop. They expect me to do like 10 things on the computer at one time in front of students. So I have to have a computer that can handle it. Plus I need to have all the, you know, all the tech. I need to be able to handle stuff like this. What is a reasonable gaming computer? There's all kinds of different brands out there. I think a good starting point is to look at like the cheaper end Alienwares. You can find a good one you can buy a decent gaming computer for $700. I'd say a good price for one is $1,200. And that's like looking on sale. Like there's all kinds of brands out there that have them. It's really about finding starting to look at what's your RAM and what's your video card. Those are the first big things I look at when I'm looking at a computer. But, definitely like if I'm thinking gaming, I'm looking at 16 gigs minimum, maybe 12, but probably 16 gigs minimum for the computer. And hopefully an upgraded video card. I like to see like VR ready written on it. But, there are a lot of computers out there that are still like 4 gigs, 6 gigs, 8 gigabytes. And you cannot, those are the minimum specs to run a game. Minimum spec means like it's not going to be good, and it's definitely not going to last like 3 or 4. I mean, people want to buy a computer. They don't want to buy one every year or two. I mean, you used to have to do that, but you don't anymore. Yeah, and you need all the e-learning stuff. Like you need to run Articulate, Captivate, Camtasia. Like I'm running all kinds of stuff on my machine. I've got like Final Cut, or not Final Cut. I've got Premiere, Audition, all kinds of stuff that takes up a lot of space. Like me creating a video and compressing it on my Alienware 32 gigabyte machine that was almost $5,000. It's only a year and a half old. Still slows up my machine. I mean, video just takes a lot. Camtasia is a hog. It's such a cool piece of software that the idea of Camtasia is really, really cool. Camtasia doesn't work as well as I wish it did. It shoots video in 30 frames per second. It likes to blame your video camera, but it's not the video camera's fault. It doesn't want to shoot in 1080p. I've got to drop all my video compression down to like 720. And it barely wants to do 7. It really wants to do like 400. There are a lot of problems with Camtasia. It's a great piece of software. I use it 10 times a week. I like it. I just wish that it did some things a little better than it does. I mean, it's good for what it is. I use it all the time, but that software just bugs me. And I hate that they keep coming out with a new version every year and they don't let you upgrade for free. It's like I have to keep paying for the new version. It's a good piece of software. I use Camtasia for most of my video stuff. Like when I'm screen recording, I use Camtasia. When I'm making a video, I'm usually using Camtasia. I like it. I use it all the time. It's really simple. It's like as easy as using iMovie or Windows Movie Maker. It's really simple to use. I haven't used Adobe Spark. I haven't used Adobe Spark. Isn't Adobe Spark, is that out yet? Let's see. Let me look this up. I feel like Adobe Spark. Get impactful social graphics, web pages, and short videos. I didn't realize Adobe Spark was out. I had just talked about this a little while ago, and it wasn't out. I don't think it was out yet. Great, beautiful graphic. Video stories in minutes. Interesting. I would love to see Adobe compete with Camtasia. Pricing, individual team. Oh, is this not come with the Adobe plan? Does this not come with does Adobe Spark, did you know if it comes with the let's see, Adobe Suite. I swear I keep buying all this software by if it comes with Creative Cloud. Let's see. Oh, it's in the Creative Cloud. Awesome. I'm gonna have to try it out. All right, I'm gonna give it a go. Yeah, I had just talked about Adobe Spark not too long ago. Oh no, it came out in 2016. Never mind. I'm thinking of something else. Something else Adobe I was excited about in like the last 2 or 3 months. It must have not been Spark. I'll check it out. I'll see how it works with video and see what it does. Maybe I'll do a little review of it. Give me something to do. I love playing with new pieces of software. So that'll be fun. I've been doing a lot with Premiere and Audition lately, and they're a lot more complicated than trying to do everything in Camtasia. But anyway, I think that's about it for today. Oh yeah, Premiere gets complicated really fast. Audition is pretty easy to use. I mostly use Audacity for all my sound stuff. I don't use Audition much, but yeah, I got to take off. I was trying to be on for like 15 to 20 minutes. I'm at 25. I try not to make these too long. So, but yeah, I'll try to be on next week. Definitely. I'm trying to make this a routine and get on here all the time, especially now that my students are all back. They're going to be coming on. I'll be telling them each week to come on and ask questions and everything. So there will be more people on. But yeah, definitely thanks for joining. And yeah, you'd let me know if you have any questions. Thank you. Have a good day.